Alright guys, as you can guess by the title, I want to talk about why I think a Chevy is the best way to get into hot rodding. They're the cheapest! Alright, see you in the next video. Alright, well in all seriousness, I do have a few reasons, and I'm going to channel my inner Uncle Tony and explain to you why I think that I'm 100% right. Well, I always think I'm right, that's kind of the problem. I wrote a bunch of things down my phone, so I'll kind of get into that a few times, and we'll have a couple of cuts and I can explain it. You guys can tell me how wrong I was in the comments, because I love that part of it. So, I did say they were the cheapest, and I mean that's in a roundabout way, I do believe that. I've been kind of pigeonholed a little bit into, everyone thinks I'm a Chevy only kind of guy and stuff, and that's mostly right. I do have a lot of Chevys. I have a couple of Dodges. I got that Challenger and the Satellite, which I'm working on, and for Fords, I have a Shelby Cobra kit car, which is Ford powered. We're kind of there, right? And I have that Model A I'm kind of working on. I had an old Model T. And honestly, I'm not specific to anything. I'd love to have a Ford or a Dodge, or I mean, there's a bunch of stuff I'd like to own. It's about affordability, and I am a bit of a quantity over quality kind of guy. And I've kind of figured out what works for me, what the cheap way to get into the hobby and keep a bunch of cars on the road and stuff. I guess it all depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to have one car, your dream car, and fix it front to back, then absolutely, I think that you can have anything you want. And the amount of money you spend on it is almost irrelevant. Because if you overspend on it, but you're going to enjoy it and stays in the family for years to come, and you just love the car, who cares what it costs, right? It doesn't matter. For me, I like to save them. I like to take them out of the bush or the barn or the wrecking yard, wherever it may be, fix them up, give them a second lease on life, and maybe not take them right to the very end, because I don't think I'm the end owner of these vehicles. I think I'm just kind of the caretaker for a short amount of time, and I get the real ugly, the hard work done where it's back on the road, and somebody can see what it could be down the road. You know what I mean? Now with Chevys, they just are cheaper. There's no way around it. The biggest one I've learned by recently getting into the Mopars, parts availability and parts pricing, at least in Canada, it's crazy. I go down to a local speed shop and I want to set a small block Chevy headers or an intake manifold, or I mean starter, one-wire alternators, a distributor, all those things in stock on the shelf, ready to go. You want oil pan, you want deep sump, you want chrome, you want baffles, what do you want? They have it. Small block, meaning big block Chevys for the most part. For Mopar stuff, it's hard to find. I had trouble in the last car finding pistons. Bearings weren't in stock. I mean, I was just on a 440. I'm trying to put in this Satellite. I wanted to change the oil pan and put a set of headers on it. Headers weren't actually that much money. They were more than Chevy stuff, but they were almost a month away. A month, like that's just craziness. We only have 3 months of summer. If we lose a month in shipping, it's over. Meanwhile, small block Chevy stuff, they had a bunch in stock ready to go. What do you want it for? Bam, bam, bam. We can put her in there. Intake manifold, same thing. It was a week and a half, 10 days away, depending on how it was going to go, which is just mind-boggling, and quite a bit more money. It was a Edelbrock, RPM, which is $300 for a Chevy and $450 for a Dodge. So that does add up. I mean, you can have a nice rebuilt small block Chevy. I mean, look at the Blueprint or Blueprint motors, or GM crate motors and stuff. You can just go down there, spend $3,000-$4,000 of a brand new motor with a warranty with 350 horsepower. Like, come on, that's absolutely amazing in my mind. And I mean, transmissions, same thing. They're so simple. The bell housings are all the same and everything. With these Mopars, I'm finding out that a 727 can be for a small block or a big block, and there's all sorts of different things. I mean, I guess if you grew up doing that stuff, it's a little different. But for me, I got a Turbo 350 sitting on the ground, and I can put that behind a big block, a small block, whatever it may be. This sucker's got a 700 R4 behind a big block Chevy, which probably isn't the right transmission if I'm really going to be bagging on it. But it fits, it worked, and I mean, a 700 is basically a Turbo 350 with overdrive, right? Kind of. So that makes life so much easier in my mind. Having a nice driveline. And then you step up in the LS motors. LS motors are coming around. They're cheap. Now Holley has that kit. You can just plug it in and go. You can't go wrong. Reliable horsepower. Those things are everywhere. seems like a lot of the late model Dodge stuff, they weren't quite as reliable from what I know about, and they were a little bit harder to kind of tune up until recently and stuff like that. So, I don't know. Those are just, again, this is my opinion, but you can still find small block Chevys, big block Chevys, whatever it is, for a relatively good price. Like the motor in this thing, which I can show you in a second, I mean, it's a big block, tunnel ram, dual quad, all that stuff. You find on a deal for, you know, a couple grand, $2,500 maybe. That's available. You put a transmission behind it, you got a pretty stout motor transmission combo. You can't go wrong with. I've bought big blocks all day long. I mean, a big block 454 out of like a truck and a turbo 400 transmission for, I mean, $500 to $1,000 is common. Try and find big block Dodge stuff. Man, I've been looking and high and low. It's hard to find. They have the motorhome stuff, the transmissions you can't be used with, and people still want to mint for them. I blame roadkill for that, but that's just the way it kind of goes. So driveline wise, I think they're cheaper. Ford, I guess they're here and there. I don't know a whole lot about them, but they sure don't seem to pop up, and I'm looking for stuff used every single day, and they just don't happen to be there. Now let's talk just straight availability of cars. So I actually didn't know a lot of this stuff until just recently, because I started getting into the Mopar thing. I fell into a few of them without even really looking. They kind of came to me, and I thought, oh, it'd be kind of fun to do, and they were more money. A lot more money I'm used to spending on a project car, for sure, but they do bring more money in the end, so it's, you can't really lose. I do understand that. We start looking around, so I got a Challenger, 74 Challenger. Then I started doing the research. Well, they only made 10 or 11,000 Challengers in 1974, and even in 1970, 71, 72, 73, they only made like, you know, 100 or 150,000 or something like that each year, versus I mean, I don't know, a Camaro, let's just say, or like a first generation Camaro, where they made 800,000 Camaros. There's just more of them. Then you factor in Firebirds and stuff like that. It's there's so many more of them available that were produced, so they're just cheaper. You know, I guess that's just kind of the numbers. I didn't realize a lot of those things. That's how it is. When it comes to repairing these old things too, I mean, something like this, Chevys, for the most part, full frame cars, which I love. God, do I love a full frame car. Camaros, Novas, obviously they had a front clip on them and stuff like that, but still, it was natural frame you could kind of bolt on. With these Mopars, with the subframes and the way they're kind of done, they're basically stamped out sheet metal, sandwiched on top of each other, all spot welded together for their strength. With the torsion bar suspension and all that. I'm not saying it's bad, it's just very different. And now these cars are getting to be 50, 60 years old, depending on what you're talking about, especially in the muscle car era. When they're rusting out, they're a lot of work, and you can't just, I mean, I can put a full floor in a Tri-5 Chevy in a weekend. Cut it out, put it in, you barely got to brace the thing, you lift it up, you slide it in, you're done. Doing that on this, these Dodges, is quite a bit more work. There's a lot more bracing. Obviously, the rockers, I mean, a rusted out rocker on a Tri-5 Chevy, every Tri-5 I've ever had, and I mean, for the most part, every Chevelle I've ever had and stuff like that, the Nova, you're changing those things. And on the full frame car, they're not structural, so it's not the end of the world. For, like on this wagon, I had the sills out of it, I had the floor out of it, and the door's still open and closed because it was still bolted down the frame. It was unbelievable. So yeah, so on these Mopars, changing a frame rail on these is quite a task. They sell all the parts now, and I don't even think they're poorly priced. They're a reasonable price for what they are, but the amount of work it is to change a full frame rail is ungodly amounts of work, versus on a Chevy, the frame's rotted or tweaked or whatever, you just find a good one for $500, a few bolts, out, in, done. Now again, that's just my opinion. It might be more labor to do that, but skill, I don't think is as much skill required to restore a Chevy versus a Mopar, which is probably what also drives the price up. I mean, anybody can bolt on a fender or a hood or stuff like that, and that's all fine and good, but you know, if you need inner fenders and stuff like that, they all just bolt together. Other than the floors and rockers, I mean, doors, everything can all be bolted on these cars. On a Mopar, that's not quite the same thing. You can bolt on doors and bolt on a trunk lid, but everything else is all part of the car. And I really think that makes a huge difference in cost, availability, and honestly, what ended up going to the crusher. I gotta keep moving around here. Stand in the same spot talking to the camera, I think makes me feel like a psychopath. So that's what takes me, I guess, to what do I think a first hot rod should be. Everybody has the dream of a 70 Chevelle or a 71 Cuda or a 69 Camaro. I hate to break it to you, those are either a fortune because they're in good shape, or they're a fortune for what they are, being a basket case. I've been looking for first generation Camaro now for a while, and I mean, you're gonna spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 easy for basically a VIN number on a rotted out shell, and that's what it's gonna be. But that being said, those cars bring real money when they are back together, and those Mopars, I can only imagine what you're paying for, and Mustangs, early Mustangs and stuff like that have gone crazy. So my recommendation, if you want to get into it, is, I mean, four-door Chevys. I mean, I'm a Tri-5 guy. I love Tri-5s, and you're probably going to get a video of me explaining why Tri-5 is the absolute best car in the world here. But a four-door Tri-5 Chevy has the same chassis, the same everything, other than it has an extra set of doors on it versus a two-door, and they are cheap. You can get a running driving one for a couple of grand, $3,000, give or take. That's kind of what I've been paying. And you can do all the performance, all the suspension, everything. They will drive, they will handle, they will do everything the exact same as a two-door sedan, other than they have an extra door in them. But it'll give you the idea, is that what you want to do? Is this what you want to get into? The next thing from that, Chevy trucks. They are everywhere, Chevy trucks. And if you pay up just a little bit and you get one with a good floor, good rockers, and good cab corners, everything else can be bought and bolted on directly. And I'm talking early stuff. I mean, the 67 to 72s, and then all square bodies. You can buy a two-wheel drive, long bed, small block Chevy, I mean here anyways, about $2,500, and a nice one that's like nice, and you can just go drive it home. It's probably $5,000 for 305 plain Jane, whatever. But that's, I mean, you can put the headers on, the dual exhaust, set of glass packs, the intake manifold, whatever it may be. And if you really get all obsessed with it and you love the thing, they sell kits that you can shorten those things up into a short bed, literally chop the frame and bolt it back together until you can have someone weld it, or whatever it may be. You can buy the box sides, which bolt on, there's no welding. The only welding rush repair on those is, like I said, floors, cab corners, rockers. If you get a truck that's solid, an old farm truck, grain truck, something like that, a cab, you don't got to worry about those things. You can bolt on anything you want to lower them, wheels and tires, like that stuff is endless. 5-on-5 Chevy wheels, they're everywhere. Set of rallies, whatever it is. And those trucks look great. And I mean, that goes right back to the early ones as well, especially if you get like a 71, 70, whatever it is, where they go 5-lug. The 6-lug stuff's a little bit different, but I'm pretty sure you can convert all that over if you go with an early Chevy truck. The Ford trucks and the Dodge trucks, those swept lines and bump sides and all that, I mean, I guess they're out there. I don't see them for sale. I don't see them driving around. I don't see them anywhere. But you see Chevy trucks everywhere, to the point now where square body trucks, they're not selling replacement panels, they're restoration panels, which is killing the price of stuff, right? The next thing, which I think is going to happen, the next style, whatever, the old body style trucks, I guess they're called, the 88 to 98 or whatever it may be, I think they're going to come around. Those are great trucks, and you can't go wrong with them. They have that nice boxy look to them. A minute one of those is going to be worth money right away. But those are the things that can get you in there, get your foot in the door, and decide, okay, do you like this? Do you want to do it? Whatever. Anybody can do brakes and suspension and shocks and lowering and put a stereo in and all those things. That's fun. The rust repair, when you start taking a car apart, you got to be damn sure you have the skill to put it back together, or a guy like me is going to show up with a trailer and you're going to lose all your money. And that's unfortunate to say out loud, but I've bought so many cars that have been started, they were something pretty solid, they get taken apart, they lose interest, lose skill, lose money, whatever it is, and it goes. Danny's 57 Chevy is a perfect example of that. That was a nice, complete 4-door Bel Air that ended up starting to be taken apart, broke every bolt off in the frame, to the body and stuff like that. And I mean, it just needed hours and hours of torch this, heat that up, undo this, weld this little thing in, but it was a nice running and driving car to start with. but I bought it in pieces. I think we had to get 3 or 4 truckloads to put it back together. And now you're limiting yourself to who's even going to buy that thing. So don't take it apart unless you're sure you're going to do it. But then you can decide. Like I said, so let's say now you have a nice driving truck or a nice 4-door Chevelle or something like that. They look good and they're available and they're out there. You can now sell that, trade up, and start off on a 2-door or switch all the parts over. Because again, a 4-door 66 Chevelle is the same as a 2-door or a convertible, or for the most part. Everything will transfer over and you'll have the same driving experience sitting behind the wheel. Get in there, see if you like it before you just go crazy. I know those cars look cool. I'm still working towards some. I got so many cars on my list I want to get yet. And honestly, this YouTube channel has made it possible. The Challenger, the Satellite, all the extra Tri-5s I've had probably wouldn't be available to me unless this YouTube channel, I mean, you know, the extra dollars I'm generating from you guys watching the ads, which I appreciate the hell out of, and force myself to take on bigger and bigger projects and expand my skill. I feel like I've doubled my skill level in the 2 years I've been doing this channel, and now the stuff that used to kind of be like, I'm not scared of it all. We'll get in there, we'll grind, we'll weld, we'll make it happen, and we'll carry on. You know, people always ask, I have a 71 Nova. I want a Nova from high school. It took me 10 years before I found one, and it was $3,000. Same thing, it had been taken all apart. There was no motor, no transmission, no doors, no interior. It was, the front subframe was off, it had the front clip, no hood, and it was sitting on a rotisserie, sandblasted down to bare metal. It was a factory SS 4-speed 12-bolt car, but in a mazillion pieces. And I got it, and I learned real quick on that, but that's what I could afford. Something that was probably a little bit more together be closer to $10,000 for a Nova here. Anyways, I don't know, maybe where you guys are it's cheaper, but that's what I've learned here. You got budget and skill. One goes up, one can go down. You can't have both. Everyone's dreaming of those you know, little old lady 6-cylinder Nova with 50,000 original miles that you can buy for a couple $1,000 slam big block in. I think those days are over myself. They might still be out there. The power of the internet, everyone knows what they have. So you're gonna pay up. So prepare yourself to either pay up or have the skills. But that's why I think Chevys are the way to go. That's why I have been with Chevys. I don't think they're any better, but I think where I am, I could, you know, maybe different where you guys are. They're way more common, they're way cheaper, they're easier to find, and honestly, I just love them. So there you go. I think we're gonna do a few more Tri-5s. I'd like to, I've got a bunch of different Tri-5s, and I'd like to show the differences between all of them. 5, 6, 7, I got multiple of them. I've done 4-door, 2-door conversions and stuff like that, but yeah. Thank you guys for watching, I appreciate it. Go out there and buy yourself a 4-door Chevy.